Big question here is now is where does it go from here? As far as Turkey is concerned, it's saying it's consulting its NATO colleagues, and obviously we need to see what the political ramifications of this will be. All right, well, let's bring in now Gwyneth Todd, a Middle East expert, joining us on the line. Hi there, Gwyneth. Thanks for your time. You're live on RT International. I'm Kevin Owen. Hope you can hear me. Turkey says it's taking a tougher stance against Islamic State, yet at the same time, it appears to have downed a jet of a country waging war, as we were saying just now, on terrorism in the region, doing exactly the same thing as Turkey says it's doing. Why would it down that jet?
Are you asking me on that?
Yeah, yeah. If they're both out doing the same thing in the same cause, why would Turkey bring down that Russian jet?
Turkey has been doing everything it can to drag NATO into its effort to unseat Assad from day one. And this is no different. If you really want to look at it legally, Turkey is the country that announced it wanted to move a 20-kilometer buffer zone into Syria, which would have been illegal. Whereas Russia is in Syria at the invitation of the Syrian government and legally there. And everything that Erdogan has done so far has been designed to sort of flout international law and to drag NATO in. Now, he will probably try to argue that he couldn't tell if it was a Syrian or a Russian aircraft because he could tell the type of airplane, but he couldn't tell whose it was, therefore they were acting in self-defense. But there is no way Turkey can argue that they face an existential threat from Syria or from Russia at this point. And to follow an aircraft in and shoot it down over Syrian airspace is frankly an act of war. And I hope that NATO stands up to Turkey and says that they are not going to back Turkey on this one.
I mean, there are going to be a lot of questions asked. There are going to be a lot of questions asked, aren't there, about this coordination centre that's set up in Baghdad to try and stop something like this happening. It was a worry all the way along the line, wasn't it, that it would? It appears to have now. And of course, the question is, what's the ramification next? Stay with us a second. Just want to remind our viewers some of the background here. Turkey joined the US-led airstrikes in Syria in July 2015. After that, Ankara was widely accused of fighting the Kurds instead of targeting ISIL. The first incident happened less than a week after launching airstrikes back then. Turkish forces did, in fact, shell a Kurdish-held village in northern Syria. The Turkish military strikes in Syria were met with mass protests at the time, we recall, that descended into clashes in the Turkish capital. Right after it started its attacks in July, over 1,000 people rallied in Ankara. These are the pictures of it. The protest was met at the time by strong response from Turkish police, and over a dozen arrests were made. So that's a bit of background there. Back to the thoughts about this now. Ramifications, it's very early days still. Obviously, Russia has said this is a very, very serious incident. We've yet to hear what NATO officially has said about it. Where do you think this is going to go?
I think, and I'm hopeful, that NATO will stand aside and tell Erdogan in Turkey that we are not going to be dragged into a war against Russia over Erdogan's desire to topple Assad in Syria. I think Erdogan has been pushing this from day one. He's been trying to drag NATO in. NATO has sort of dragged its heels and tried to find any way out. And now Erdogan's gone so far as to shoot down a Russian airplane. There is no way, in my opinion, that he could argue that he faced an imminent and sort of existential threat that Turkey did.
But mistakes happen in war, I suppose. That, as you said just now, could be an answer that they're going to come up with. It was purely a mistake. It all depends what the reaction, I guess, is over the next couple of hours from NATO, what it's officially going to say about it, and what Turkey comes back and says further as well. Ankara has been accused of trading oil, of course, with ISIL. We've been covering that on this channel a lot. Are you surprised that a Russian jet was targeted now, then, when, of course, Russia started to focus its airstrikes on ISIL oil infrastructure? Gwyneth, if you're still on the line there, it's a bit of a dodgy line. I'm not sure if you can still hear me. Gwyneth, are you still there? Oh, we've lost the line. Let's try and get back to Gwyneth a little bit later if we can. Ewan, can you wrap up for us then where we are today on this,
Sure.
what the latest news is, what's come through? For our viewers who just joined us, a Russian jet has been shot down today, it looks like, by Turkey. Bring us up to speed where we are.
Yeah, let's just recap our breaking news this hour. If you're just joining us, welcome to the programme. Our breaking news story this hour, Russia's defence ministry has now stated that jet was brought down over Syria. The Russian Defence Ministry added that during the flight, the aircraft was flying within the borders of Syria. It was, in fact, the Syrian government, that has been confirmed by Ankara, that brought down this jet over Syrian territory. Turkey is saying that that the plane actually went across Kevin, Syria's borders. Russia is denying that strenuously. They are saying that we will do a full investigation, of course, into what is happening, but that did not occur. One of the issues here, of course, is the pilots, the fate of what occurred with the pilots. Some of what you're seeing on our screen now purports to show the parachutes of the two pilots on that Russian jet coming down over Syria. We do not know what has occurred to them. There are conflicting reports. One, that they fell into the hands of Turkmen affiliates in the country who are ethnic Turks in Syria. We do not know what occurred to them. One may have died, we're also hearing. So we're just hoping that we can get confirmation on that at the moment. Let's now return, Kev, to our Middle East expert who we're speaking to there. Gwyneth Todd, I believe, is on the line.
Yeah, Gwyneth, hopefully you can hear us again. It's Kevin Owen you're talking to. We lost the line just then. Of course, Gwyneth, I don't know if you heard what Ewan was saying, just recapping for our viewers the events today. Adding to the severity of it is, of course, it looks like at least one of these pilots has died. If both these guys had ejected and been safe, that would have been one story, but it looks like something else is playing out here, and it makes the political ramifications even more serious, doesn't it?
I think it does, but the rest of NATO has recognized from day one that Erdogan has been intentionally making trouble. And if you look at the discussions, and probably discussions behind the scene at the G20 recently, I think that there were some pretty strong words issued to Erdogan about his meddling in Syria. His support for ISIL has been continuous. And it's not just supporting the oil infrastructure, it's been with weapons, it's been with, allowing people to transit back and forth. And, he is truly testing NATO. And I don't believe that NATO is going to appreciate it. And so far, even the Germans have come out and said in the past that they will not back Turkey if Turkey chooses to face off against Russia and Syria. And Erdogan, coming on the heels of his victory in the presidential elections, in the prime ministerial elections, seems to be sort of riding high and testing the boundaries again. But we do have other ways of handling such incidents. We have diplomats who issue démarches, and who go to the other country and say, your country violated our airspace, and we don't like it.
Yeah.
That's
before you actually shoot the plane down. I mean, for the Russian side, Russia is saying at the moment that it did not violate Turkish airspace. That's what the Foreign Ministry and Defence Ministry is saying. Obviously, Turkey's saying something else. I just want to go back to something I was putting out there to you before we lost the line a couple of minutes ago. Ankara's been accused of trading oil with ISIL in the past. It's something we've covered a lot on this channel. Are you surprised, therefore, then, that it was a Russian jet that was targeted now, if indeed it was specifically targeted, when Russia has started, of course, to focus its airstrikes on ISIL oil infrastructure? There's been a lot of talk about this black market of selling oil, and a lot of that black market allegedly happening in Turkey, and of course that's where ISIL is getting a lot of its money from.
I think Turkey is going to fight any progress made against ISIL. Turkey sees ISIL as key to destabilizing the Assad regime and getting rid of it. So the Russians have come in. They're there in larger numbers now. They're flying operations, and this was probably inevitable. I think that this is a test, and how Russia reacts to this and how NATO reacts to it will really determine where we go in the future. It's a terribly important event.
Turkish authorities were strongly opposing Russia bombing, joining in the bombing campaign in Syria, as you're saying, warning against violating Turkish airspace. Let's listen to the recent words from them about that.
The steps Russia is taking and the bombing campaign in Syria are quite unacceptable to Turkey. Unfortunately, Russia is making a grave mistake. Its actions in Syria are worrying and disturbing. The countries that cooperate with the Syrian regime will be accountable to history.
I'm once again stating this very clearly. We will not make any concessions when it comes to our border security or airspace security. We expect that every country that respects its own borders respects Turkey's borders. And it should be known that, as mentioned in NATO statements, Turkish airspace is naturally NATO airspace.
That's the President PM of Turkey you were hearing there. Back to you again. Why would Turkey oppose Russian efforts to push back terror in the region? Good question.
I think that Turkey has been encouraging terror in the region because it's that terror that is causing the instability in Syria, that is allowing Turkey to hopefully gain a foothold in a nation that borders Israel, which I think is its ultimate goal.
But it's also a NATO member. How does it explain that to the rest of the NATO team?
Well, I think that what we're seeing is the inevitable reaching a breaking point with NATO that Erdogan has been heading towards. First it was the European Union and then NATO. And basically, I think that Turkey has become more of a liability in many ways than an ally. And this is something that is going to have to be addressed. Now, I would add again that it is ironic that Turkey would say that, given that Turkey is the country that has unilaterally claimed that it has the right to go 20 kilometers into Syria. It does not respect Syria's borders.
Gwyneth, we're going to leave it there. Nice to see you today, and thank you for your comments. Thanks for coming on the programme. As we continue with our rolling news coverage here of what's happened in Syria today, the shooting down of this jet. Gwyneth Todd, Middle East expert, thanks for now. Ewan.
I think it's probably a good idea to recap just what we know. A lot of stuff.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.